All right, shalom, shalom, everybody. Shabbat shalom. Um, this is another Sabbath day. Thanking the Lord that we made it here again. Able to learn and be under His grace and His wisdom and His knowledge. Like I said, just being thankful. Like you up, that you're breathing, you can see, and all those good things above. Yeah, you may not have a car, or you may not be in the house you want and things like that. But like I said, you're here and you're able to receive this message, right? Today's lesson is going to be about meekness, right? Which really means to be humble, means to be gentle, means to be soft in spirit, having meekness and being around being around other people, that's a real big character trait that you'll need just to be into the kingdom, right? Just to be following God, just to be following Christ and things like that. Most people really can't humble themselves, right? But that's a great attribute to have. Like I said, even Christ himself was humble and humbled himself amongst the people and everybody, right? Now mind you, he's the king. He's king of everything, and he still could make himself low as if he was like homeless or poor, right? Just to show you that's not what it means. See, we so focused on status and the way somebody looks at you, your images and all those things, and not realizing it's a lot better to be, amongst the people and be in the low state, right? Because when you at that low state already, ain't too much you can go, ain't too much lower you can go. So you can't really fall. But when you high and you mighty and you want to be proud, right? That's where you fall. When you got a great job but you mess it up, or you got a good relationship or you mess it up, or you could be in a good place somewhere in life, right? That God has set you up, but you not being humble will change all that, right? Whether it's in a heartbeat, whether it's over time, all those things. So meekness is a real key to serving God, right? Understanding God, that's what He looks for. There's a delight in that, right? Not being proud, not boasting on things that you have, because everything that you have anyway is from God, right? So there's nothing that you're literally doing to get stuff. God just puts you in a position, because He could have shown you favor, or He could have, just be going by your heart, right? But we mess up when we decide that we don't want to be humble, that we don't want to lower ourselves or our standards to be amongst them to serve God and be in humility, right? Because that's what it's really about. Not really about putting yourself forward, but uh, bringing yourself to a point where you're so low. Like I said, all your care is to serve God, right? So I'm gonna say the Lord's Prayer as usual, and then we're gonna get into this lesson, right? Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors, and lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. And thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. All right, so this first little section is meekness, is God's delight. So the first verse we're gonna look at is in the book of Sirach, chapter 1, verse 27. The book of Sirach, chapter 1, verse 27. Depending on what kind of apocrypha you have, it might say Ecclesiasticus. It's the same book. So Ecclesiasticus and Sirach is the same book. All right. And it's chapter 1, verse 27. All right. And it says, "For the fear of the Lord is wisdom and instruction, and faith and meekness are his delight." Right. So, first of all, the fear of the Lord is wisdom, right? And instruction. So, if you're not listening, you're not paying attention, right? Through God's words, not nobody else's words, with God's words, you already at a disadvantage. You already behind, right? Because God wants you to follow Him, right? Follow His ways, because His ways is better than anybody's ways, right? I mean, it would be. He know everything. I tell you all the time. If you got a problem with your iPhone, you don't go to Samsung and ask them, right? You go to Apple because they the ones who made the phone. So just if God made all the rules in the world, you got a problem, go ask God. Don't ask your mom, don't ask your wife, don't ask your husband, don't ask your brothers. Go ask God, right? Because He gonna have the best answer by far. Ain't even gonna be close, right? So you should always take in that. And it says, "In faith and meekness are his delight." So he likes that blind trust, right? That 100% trust that you give him through faith. And the meekness also being humble, right? Being humble and content. So let's say you lost your job, right? Or you lost a family member, or you lost something, right? Now you got to be in the state of being content, right? Because you probably lost it because of something you did, right? And let's say it's something you didn't do. Let's say you thought you was living perfectly like Job was, and something you didn't do, right? You still lost it. You still have to be in that meekness and humility to be content with what you have, right? Some people complain, like I said, their houses are super big, but not appreciating that they got 4 walls and a roof. Some people don't even have that, right? Or let's say you got a job and you're not making a bunch of money, right? You should be content that you have a job. I was talking to somebody this morning, they don't have a job, looking for a job, struggling, right? Or you got a car. It may not be the car you wanted, but the car gets you from point A to point B, or you're able to get to point A from point B, whether it's an Uber, somebody giving you a ride, whether it's a friend, family member, whatever. You should be thankful for that, right? But you should just be content and understand this would, this could be a result of your not listening to wisdom, not listening to God's instructions, right? And this is a punishment, but even still with God's punishments, he always still gives a blessing inside of that, right? So for instance, David took Bathsheba, right? Which wasn't his wife. He took someone else's wife. God did kill the first baby, but also gave the second baby, which is Solomon, the kingdom, right? So God still blessed him even of his wrongdoing. So even when we do wrong, God can still bless you. It doesn't mean you stay in a mindset or a way of life to keep doing wrong, but just know that a blessing can come through wrongdoing. All right. So next is Psalms chapter 25, verse 9. Gotta be in God's delight. Psalms 25, verse 9. And this is all talking about how God delights on the meek. And this is why it's important to follow God's instructions, right? Just because everything goes by God's way, really, right? Even if it's something evil, right? It's still God's way. Like he had to approve of something, right? They just can't do nothing. So even the bad guys work for him, right? So this is Psalms 25, verse 9. It says, "The meek will he guide in judgment, and the meek will he teach his way." Right? So the ones he's trying to teach his way and guide them in judgment is the ones who have that humility. You know what I'm saying? The ones that's being humble, the ones that's willing to lower themselves to take instruction, to take wisdom because God's their best, right? They not worried about looking pretty, got their image all up, always getting haircuts, always getting their hair done. Like some people don't even realize how much they are in the flesh, right? Because they so far from the spirit. They so focused on everybody else in the world and not caring about what they do, right? So for instance, you want to partake in everything, you want to watch all these TV shows. Sometimes you might not even be doing these things because you really genuinely want to. You're doing it because somebody else wants to. Your significant other or a family member, right? Friends. You're doing a lot of things to, show off other people. When you have parties and stuff, some girl was talking about birthdays, and I had to tell her I don't care about nobody's birthday, right? Because if you didn't have a birthday, what would you do? And they would say, "Oh, I'll just pick a day." Oh, okay, cool. Doesn't really matter. You put some day above everything because you want to be worshipped. I don't care for that, right? And when somebody like myself, and I don't care for that, you'll get um you'll get judged, you'll get talked about, you'll get scrutinized, you'll get so many things just because you don't care about that. I care about people's well-being. It's like, are you okay? Is the baby okay? Stuff like that. And people will look at you as if it's weird, right? But that's the humility being humble because they still want everything in the world. They feel like God owes them something. I tell people all the time, God don't owe you anything, right? You owe God everything, actually. He don't owe you anything, right? The fact that you're alive, that's more than enough, right? That you're alive, that you're breathing, that he gave you life, you still have a chance. You know what I'm saying? Because if that wasn't the case and you can do all these things yourself, then it'd be a different situation. If you can create life without God, right? Or if you can create water, trees, food, sustain yourself, create things that's not already in the earth, right? Because we don't really create nothing. All we do is build or make up something that's already here, right? So like a house is made out of wood, but that comes from trees. That ain't what you made. You drink waters and all this other stuff and sodas and coffee. Well, you need water to make that, right? You need the coffee beans to make that. All that comes from God. Nothing comes from you. So what does God owe you? God gave us everything. Where we give God a bunch of disobedience, a bunch of sin, things like that, right? So Like I said, they say he'll guide you in judgment, and the meek he'll teach his way. He's trying to show you that there is judgment according to the ways you walk, right? People think it's like not like that. Oh, God's forgiving. He is forgiving, but that doesn't mean there's a penalty behind either. Just like you go on the streets, you can go get a red light ticket, and you got to pay a fine. You can go do a crime. You might got to do a couple years in jail, right? But that doesn't mean you won't be released. That doesn't mean you won't be able to drive again. Doesn't mean you won't be able to be free again, right? But there had to be some type of penalty. Same thing with God, right? Except for He's the all powerful, almighty. He's the all great judge. So His penalty is gonna be a little different. You know, it might come in different forms, different ways, different times. He might not give you that notice in the mail telling you to come to court, right? You following the rules, you're supposed to know what it is, right? But then that's the humility part, the meekness. Are you willing to go study the rules? Are you willing to go learn the rules? Are you willing to go practice the rules? Nah, you'll do it for something else though. You'll do it for sports and things like that. But when it comes to God, people choose not to do that type of stuff, right? So this is the book of next verse is in Zephaniah. It's Zephaniah chapter 2, verse 3. Zephaniah 2, verse 3. All right. The book of Zephaniah, chapter 2, verses 3. It's talking about seeking the Lord, right? It says, Seek ye the Lord, all ye meek of the earth, which have wrought his judgment. Seek righteousness, seek meekness. It may be ye shall be hid in the day of the Lord's anger, right? So he's telling you to seek righteousness, seek meekness, right? Seek these things because when the Lord brings his wrath, you know, you'll be the one that's spared. You'll be the ones that's hidden, right? Because people will also be, like I said, they'll talk about God and how loving he is and stuff like that. Yes, that is true, but God also has a side of wrath. God is a man of war, right? So destruction and all this stuff will come upon people, right? And you could be one of those, right? I could be one of those, right? So that's why every day I try to get my life together. Every day I'm trying to work on myself better and better and better, right? You can be one of those people. And God's wrath, I tell people all the time, is a lot different than a person's wrath, the animal's wrath, even the weather itself, you know, the way that goes. All those are wraths, but not compared to God. I can only imagine the destruction God can cause because He has everybody scared of Him, even the angels, all these people, they fear Him too, right? Say it said they tremble in James, I think it's James 2:18. It said they tremble, right? So even they tremble, right? But they're the ones that's haunting everybody on earth. So they haunting us. While they scared of God, they haunting them. Like when Christ was talking to the demons and they was all scared, like, you better come kill us now. He like, nah, not now, let y'all live. They was scared to the point where they was just like, well, you know, spare us out. They was asking for grace and mercy, right? The evil people, the demons was asking for grace and mercy. I think that's kind of funny, right? So just think about that when you walking on this earth, like I said, how you treating people and stuff like that, because that really matters. All right. So this part, the next section is meekness and helping others. So the next verse we can go to is in First Timothy, chapter 6, verse 11. So First Timothy, chapter 6, verse 11. Oh, no. It says, But thou, O man of God, flee these things and follow after righteousness, godliness, faith, love, patience, and meekness, right? So before that's talking about the root of all evil being the love of money, and it's telling them to stay away from that stuff, right? Tell them to stay away from that, the lust, to all these things, right? So when he says, flee these things and follow after righteousness, godliness, faith, love, patience, meekness, excuse me, those are some of the key things that you need to follow God, if not the most key things. Loving people, having patience with people, being gentle with people, faith, which is trusting, and godliness, is which is showing yourself to be holy, right? And righteousness, you know what I'm saying, walking His way. Those things make up what a good Christian should be, right? A good core Christian, somebody who's trying to do what it's supposed to. Because people, like I say all the time, they talk about God and why he let this happen. Well, he allowed a lot of stuff to happen, right? But he's not the one that's doing anything. It's us. We're being driven by emotions. We're driven by anger from Satan or whoever, right? You're being driven to do all these things, and you wind up hurting somebody next to you. You wind up hurting somebody from across from you. You wind up leaving somebody next to you. You wind up somebody from across to you. All those things come from us, right? But let's say you change the way you looked at life and you nicer to people and this and that. Like let's say somebody's having an argument. Somebody's really, really angry. Sometimes it's just like, hey, you all right? Why are you angry, right? And you stay in that form of meekness. Now mind you, sometimes people would still go off the end because they could be influenced by drugs and things like that. But a lot of the times, a lot of things escalate because one person brings the other person into this evil circle, right? Instead of you staying strong and not staying evil, right? You just like, okay, you know what? Hey man, it's okay. Forgive them. Say God bless to them. Anything, right? Try to speak some type of kind words because usually that's not it. Some days he will just go about their day, and you never know what he's going through. So like you may see somebody, you can compliment them on their clothes or their hair or something like that, right? And that may just change their whole direction of the day because they could have had a lot of things that happened this morning, the night before, the week before, who knows, right? But just the way you approach something, right? Like I said, being gentle and stuff like that, and showing yourself as a real Christian, that can change a whole lot. Compared to if you say you're a Christian or you follow Christ, right? And then you're out doing all the wicked things everybody else is doing. When confrontation happens, you're involved in that, right? And you don't ever try to show the godliness in it, right? You never try to show the holiness because this thing, we can all say we Christians, right? But if we all doing what the wicked doing, what's the separation, right? Where's the holiness versus unholiness? Where's the righteousness versus the unrighteousness? Where's the faith versus the faithless? You can't really tell. So there has to be something like a measurement that you have to step away from to show the difference between who's faithful, who's not faithful, who's righteous, who's not righteous, right? And that's a big part of it. So the next one is in Second Timothy. So the next book, chapter 2, verses 25 through 26. Second Timothy, chapter 2, verses 25 through 26. Mhm. All right, verse 25 to 26. It says, "In meekness, instructing those that oppose themselves, if God perhaps will give them repentance to the acknowledgement of the truth, and that they may recover themselves out of the snare of the devil, who are taken captive by him at his will." Right? So it's saying when you're being humble, right, having meekness, instructing those to oppose themselves. If God perhaps will give them repentance to the acknowledgement of the truth, right? So you're supposed to be in this meek, gentle form, right? Just telling them the truth, right? Telling them what's going on about themselves, whatever. Some people don't like hearing about themselves, but hey, that's where God steps in, right? Giving them that ability to accept the truth, right? Because they don't realize what they could be doing to themselves. I was once in that position, right? Just doing things, on my own understanding, not realizing somebody I may not like or somebody I may disagree with, that God could have sent them, right, as this meek, gentle person, right? At least in that form. And I denied it, right? And it cost me some things. It cost me my job at one point, and a few other things, right? So I lost some things, job, car, stuff like that, house, all kind of stuff, right? Just not listening to somebody else, right? And understanding their meekness and gentleness is to help me, right? Giving me this instruction, like we already talked about earlier, just having that instruction, right? And if God will give them that truth, right, it will get them away from the devil, right? Because that's all he does, set up traps all day. Let's say you was lusting on corn and you wanted to be watching corn all day or whatever, cool. God says no problem, right? But let's say you remove yourself from that, right? Cool, because you listen, right? Satan like, dang, I can't do nothing to him right there. But you know what? He got some other vices. He might smoke, he might drink or whatever. Let's do those. Or, he might be a drug user. He might be on any type of thing. He might be a wife abuser. He could be so many things, right? Satan finds the next best angle, right? And then he'll work on that angle, work on that angle, work on that angle, work on that angle. And then when he gets you back in, boom, you fell for the trap, which is the snare, right? God may send somebody to come get you out that snare, right? But then now while you're in this snare, Are you still open to God? Do you have that humility? Are you going to be meek? Are you going to be humble, right? Are you going to lower yourself back down to realize, you know what, I need God? Because like I said, without God, you can't beat the devil. I'm sorry. That just is what it is. You're not going to be able to beat somebody. You know the Bible. You can say you know the Bible, but you need to follow the Bible. Nobody cares if you know it. I know a lot of books. I know a lot of stuff, but do you follow it, right? Because I learned that people know about stuff, but they still don't follow it. They'll try to find their own way, their own loophole, and they'll still try to get around something, right? But when you do that, like I told you, it's a guideline. It's like a fence, right? You want to hop out the fence, now you in the danger zone. If you within the fence, I'm not saying you can't see danger, because you might see danger far off, but the danger can't get you when it comes to God. Other things in life are a little bit different, but it's still giving you the best opportunity to succeed, to be successful, to be protected in whatever form or whatever fashion, right? Because the instruction, um, like I said, that goes a long way. I was playing a video game with my brothers, and we was on this mission and we just couldn't get past it, right? And I'm trying to tell my little brother, like, hey, let's do this. He is fighting me. He is just not trying to listen. And mind you, I'm like, look, I gave him the glory. I said, you are the better shooter. You're the best one. You better than all of us. It's not even no question, right? But I don't think you have the best plans. That's all, right? I think I do. So just listen to my plan. Immediately, we followed the plan. We got it on the first move, right? And then everybody was laughing or whatever the case may be. But like I said, it's not really so much um, listening to who, right? It's really about that humbleness. Can you lower yourself? Like, I don't know all that about cars, so when somebody know more than me, I'm gonna humble myself, right? I talk to my brother about boxing all the time. Hey, he done box and everything. So when it comes to boxing, I'm gonna listen to him. You wanna know why? Cause so far he ain't let me down, right? Does he know everything about boxing? No, but he know more than these people. So I'm gonna listen to him. I'm gonna put myself in a humble state to be able to learn, right? To be able to have instruction. It's the same thing with God. You got to put yourself in that humble state to be able to learn, to be able to be guided, to be able to have His wisdom to keep going forward in the best way possible. All right. So next is Galatians chapter 6, verse 1. You got to that cord out. Galatians chapter 6, verse 1.
You said that verse was?
Galatians chapter 6, verse 1. It says, brethren, if a man be overtaken in a fault, ye which are spiritual, restore such as one in the spirit of meekness, considering thyself, lest thou also be tempted, right? So when it says somebody's been overtaken in fault, he said you are spiritual restored as once in the spirit of meekness, right? So it's saying, let's say somebody you're around is going through something bad, right? They're going to fall. You got to go to yourself, restore yourself, and make sure you humble, make sure you good in your spirit, because it can happen to you. Somebody around you drinking, somebody around you smoking. You got to be strong, because what's happening is a spirit behind that, right? And that spirit wants you to participate in this, right? That's what the evil wants us to do. The demons, they want to participate in sin all the time, right? So we can go against God. They know they know their fate. It's over. They're going to get killed. They know that, right? Even like when I was talking about the pig situation with the demons, they was like, "Have you come to end us now?" They already know they're gonna get ended. They just didn't know when, right? They know the time is coming, but they're like, "Well, you know what? While we going to hell, we're gonna bring everybody we can with us, right?" So they know that. So they push us towards these things to bring us down there with them on their level. Like I said, God doesn't send people to hell. We choose to go, right? By being disobedient, disobeying God, not following His instructions, right? So like I said, so somebody has fault, and you got to restore yourself, right? Make sure you good, because what's going to happen is the temptation will come around your turn, right? And let's say you're tempted, boom, you can't help them now. Now you really can't help them because you tempted, they tempted. So both of y'all are stuck in the trap, right? So now you gotta wait for somebody else to come around and help you, right? And have God send somebody else, all because you wasn't strong in yourself. You wasn't in this humble humility state where you to realize, like, hey, maybe I shouldn't do that, right? Maybe I should stay on point. Maybe I should stay on my toes, because if I slip up, this can be bad. All sin is equal, far as that God is against it, right? But some sin, I believe, are more catastrophic than others, right? So you may do something that's small, but there's still a penalty behind it. But you do something else that you may think is small, but the penalty is huge, right? Catastrophic. And it's not like a penalty far as like 10 years, 20 years, XYZ, but it may cause more damage. It may linger more, right, than the so-called other penalty. Like, for instance, you steal from somebody, right? That could be bad, but you can always work back that money. Take somebody's life, that's different. You can't get this person back, right? So some of them just have different, more catastrophic levels, but they all still the same. Like I said, if somebody commit murder or steal a candy bar, it's still sin to God, right? But there's a difference because now, depending on the sin you do, you may not feel like you can't even repent, right? You may feel like there's no grace, there's no mercy, there's no wisdom because you feel like you did something so awful. I had a friend tell me he did something, and I was like, look, bro, everything can be forgiven. This is what God says, right? Except for blasphemy of the Holy Spirit. That's a little different, but everything can be forgiven. So if all your sins can be forgiven, don't worry about what you did. You can have shame about it. I had shame about what I've done. You know what I'm saying? It's cool. But just know God still will love you. He still has that hand out. Like, hey, I'm still here if you need me. So don't worry about the sin you did. Worry about how you can fix it, how you repent, and you don't do it anymore. All right. So this next example is Christ, right? Even Christ talks about his meekness. So this is in Matthew chapter 11, verses 28 to 30. Christ is the king, right? He don't really got to be meek to us. I mean, he's a king. He don't need us. I mean, his dad and his mama, they good. They don't need us, right? But even still, him being king, he come up amongst people and he showed how humble he is, right? So this is Matthew 11, chapter 28 through verse 30, right? It says, come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and you shall find rest unto your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. So let's just go ahead and get out of the way. It says yoke, right? Yoke is like a chain around your neck, right? All right, they deal with the animals and stuff like that. I tell people this all the time. You a slave of Christ, whether you like it or not. You a slave of Christ or you a slave of the devil. Ain't no in between. Because if you feel like you a slave by yourself, I mean, I don't know how long you really gonna last and how much prospering you're gonna do. But if you're not with Christ by default, you automatically with the devil, right? And I had to tell this one of my friends. I said, I'm a slave of Christ. He's like, he's not no slave. I said, look, bro. And I showed him some scriptures, that one and a couple of us. I said, you a slave to somebody, right? You a slave to sin. You a slave to God. You a slave to something, right? You just don't see it. So Christ is telling you, yeah, you're going to be my slave or whatever, right? But people who hear that word slave, first thing they do is go to slavery, right? In America. Oh, they was beating us. No, no, no. It's just another word for servant, right? So you still be my servant, but he's trying to tell you his burden is light, right? Because he's gentle. So he's not gonna be just beating you to death and treating you bad. I tell people all the time, right? Even though the lifestyles are different, because you don't get what you necessarily think you want or how you want it, like in a genie form when you're dealing with God compared to dealing with the devil, right? But actually, it's a lot easier working for God, right? In the sense that when you work for Satan, first of all, you have no idea what the outcome is going to be, but you actually work hard, right? You work hard, and it's a lot more dangerous because he's not really in the business of protecting you. He's just in the business of using you. When God is, he's in the business of protecting you. So he try to keep you away, try to keep you doing this. Satan, it's like an open world video game. You can do whatever you want. I don't care, right? And if you need help, I got you. Of course, I'm gonna need a favor back. Christ isn't like that, right? God isn't like that. The favor they ask for him is just to follow them, love them, just show their ways. That's it. He's just telling you to do what he's telling you to do. That's it. Satan's saying you can do whatever you want to do, right? But he's not telling you the penalties and the consequences that come by doing whatever you want to do, because he's not telling you about God being the enemy. He's not telling you that. He's not telling you that when you go around having sex with women unprotected, you create babies and stuff like that, or you spread diseases. He ain't telling you all those things. He like, hey, do what you gonna do, because we'll figure it out. Ain't that wrong, baby mamas? You got child support. We just gonna live with that, right? God don't want you in that. God wants you in family. He wants you around these other things. But people don't see that because they so into themselves, right? They don't have that humility to be humble. Like, you know what? I can't do this. Or you know what? I can't play the game today. Or you know what? I can't go here. Can't go here. Right? God may tell you, he told me the other day, I asked God for something. I said, yo, can you do this for me? He told me, yeah. I said, okay, cool, right? But when he said it, it was almost like, yeah, you can do it. But it was almost like, it's not the right time. So I asked him, I said, well, can I do it today? He said, no. I said, okay. But now I know why, because yesterday something came up, and if I'd have did what I did the other day, today would have been a disaster, right? And not a disaster, and like I said, every day's a good day, but today would have been a disaster. So he still gave me the permission to do something, right? And he said it was okay. Like he gave me that, know how to know it's okay. But he also said this ain't the right time to do it though. So that means it's a time for it to come. And that's what God means by time and place for everything, right? You can still do stuff whenever you want to do it, right? But that don't mean that's when God wanted to do it. So when it's about the time, place, everything, it's speaking of God's words, right? God's ways, God's timing, not our timing. So when you read that in Ecclesiastes, that's what it's talking about. It's not talking about just timing in general, like it's time to die. It's time to die when God ready for you to die. But you can commit suicide. That's not a time for you to die. But you can do it though. You know, you can go for this job. God ain't say go for that job yet because there was another job after that. But you know what? You can do that though, right? But that's not God's time, right? And that's the difference. So you're not gonna be meek like Christ is somebody who's gentle himself, right? Not trying to look to harm people. Like even myself, I was, I'm not gonna say I was looking to harm people, but it wasn't really an issue to harm somebody, 'cause I was protecting myself with doing on for. But now I'm not necessarily been to that. I'm just, hey, you got it, you got the situation, you can have it or whatever. But it doesn't mean I'm gonna protect myself if I'm in danger. But I'm not quick to harm nobody, right? I'm quick to speak to people, try to be as gentle as I can be, talk to people as nice as I can be, right? And with being gentle, it also is some pain with it because usually when you're gentle, you still gotta tell the truth about somebody, right? And people see that as not being gentle. They just like, oh, you're not gentle. It's not really that. It's that you don't want to accept the truth, right? Because you're not humble enough. Because when you're not humble enough, like I say, a lot of things are out the window. Some things bleed over into other things. Humility is one of them. If you're not humble, it can bleed over into everyday life, your family, all types of things, relationship, work, so much, right? A lot of these things bleed over to that. Being respectful, patience, all those things can bleed over into your daily life. But people don't see it because they take every incident by incident, isolate everything. It's not like that. If I'm an angry person, no matter where I go, it's gonna be problems because I'm always angry, right? So anger is the key. It's not the key that I beat somebody up. It's not the key that I committed murder. It's not the key that I committed adultery. That's not the key. The key is that I'm angry. I ain't fixed that yet. Because if I wasn't angry, I wouldn't have committed adultery. I wouldn't have committed murder. I would have did something else, right? I could have helped that person. I could have got married. I could have did all these things, but all because I was angry, I never checked that. That led to other problems, right, within the situation. You don't want that, all right? So another part of Christ being humble is in Matthew chapter 21, verse 5. Dun, 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 dun. Matthew 21, verse 5. And it says, tell ye the daughters of Zion, behold, thy king cometh unto thee, meek and sitting upon an ass, and a colt, the foal of an ass, right? So Christ came and sat on a donkey. He's supposed to be the king, right? But when people hear king, they think of gold, jewels, all these shiny diamonds, these things. Somebody lifted up really high. This man came on a donkey, right? That's humility at its finest, right? He came on the lowest form of an animal because a donkey, you know what I'm saying, it's supposed to be it's useless like a mule, right? You don't do nothing but you help you like a slave or a servant. So a servant came on a servant. They're not expecting that from a king, right? So when they see him, they're still not picturing a king, right? Because they're not understanding the part of the being meek. They don't understand how God delights in that. They understand about how they see, right? And what Satan does, put everybody on high. He put everybody on kingdoms. That's what he want to be, the king of everything, right? So now when you see that, it's like, dang, that's almost like if somebody was a celebrity or something and they came in like a Toyota Corolla or something, you expect them to come like in a Bentley, right? Because you're basing their status on them, how they living. So whether it's a celebrity, a superstar, you judging stuff based off of that, right? But there's no humility in that because now you don't put everybody on this pedestal, right? And now you got like a rank. Boop, 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 boop. You got a ranking order of how people are going to treat people and stuff like that. Now it's based off of clothes. It's based off of how much money they got. All these things, right? Which isn't a good thing, right? It's based that's based off the wrong things and the wrong principles and the wrong policies. Because now when you do that, you treat people a certain way, right? You're gonna lose humility. You're gonna lose that meekness. You're gonna lose all that you thought you might have had. Let's say you had something. You're gonna lose that all because now you treat somebody differently. You'll treat the janitor or the waiter different than somebody like the CEO because you feel like, oh, this person is big time or this and that, but not realizing they could have been a janitor, or a waiter at one time, right? But you see it as a status thing, and that's what God don't want you to do. So if you're not being meek and being humble, you'll fall into that trap like everybody else. All right. So next is talking about meekness and not having pride, right? And I'm gonna give an example in the Bible where this meekness it played a factor into somebody because they didn't want to be humble, and you're talking about their own family member, which is crazy, right? So I'm gonna give you examples of why you shouldn't be meek, and then I'm gonna give you an example of the situation that happened with Moses. So first is Psalms chapter 37, verse 8 through 13. Psalm 37, verse 8 through 13. Let's take video 1 minute. Psalms 37, verses 8 to 13. It says, cease from anger and forsake wrath. Fret not thyself in any wise to do evil. For evildoers shall be cut off, but those that wait upon the Lord, they shall inherit the earth. For yet a little while, and the wicked shall not be. Yea, thou shalt diligently consider his place, and it shall not be. But the meek shall inherit the earth, and shall delight themselves in abundance of peace. The wicked plotted against the just, and gnasheth upon him with his teeth. The Lord shall laugh at him, for he seeth that his day is coming. So the Lord's laughing at people who want to be wicked, right, and thinking it's sweet, because he like, you know what, they don't get theirs, right? It's cool. We don't see that, right? And then we can become jealous, we can come be angry, and we're not content no more because you see somebody else doing better than you, or you seeing like, dang, he doing all this, how come he ain't got in trouble? Well, that's Satan's child. Don't worry about all that, right? And God gonna spank him too. So once we remove ourselves from that, then we can understand about being meek, right, and being humble. It says that we're gonna we're gonna have the light in the world, right, and this we have the light in the abundance of peace, and we shall inherit the earth, right. But not the ones who love the money, right? Not the ones who love idols, not the ones who love themselves. Those are not going to be the ones that's going to have a good time, right? They may think they're having a good time right now, which is true. We talked about that before. Like that's how it's going to switch. They're going to have all the joy right now, and we have all the pain and sorrow. But then it's going to switch, right? Then we have all the joy, they're going to have all the pain and sorrow. But the difference is our pain and sorrow is going to be temporary. Theirs is not, right? It's going to be forever. You don't want that. You don't want to be the wrong side. So right now, if you don't want all that, hey, you might as well go ahead now and suffer your pain and sorrow and do these things. Don't worry about the situation of not being joyous because the joy should actually just be about being content with God, right? And that's what the humility kick in. Because when you humble, you accept a lot of things, right? You accept that you may not have everything. You're eating a can of beans every day. That's the humbleness, right? But somebody who wants to be joyful and stuff all the time, that's the people who gonna fall into the biggest traps, right? Because their everything is about money. People seek money. People go about money all the time. I've never met so many people that make over $100,000 don't have no money. 200,000 don't have no money. Millionaires they went broke. How do you go broke with this much money, right? There's no humility in your life, right? Every single thing is about you being on top. Everything is about pride. Everything is about being the best of the best, right? But there's a penalty with being the best of the best when you're not doing it through God because there's no humility behind it. You trying to be the best of the best, like I said with Satan. Satan don't care who doing what, right? Because at the end of the day, you think you're the best of the best, but in reality, he's the best of the best in their camp, right? They don't know that though, right? They think it's them or they got on high, and that's when they say they self-made and all these other things, right? Satan don't care about you. So when you're doing all that, the penalty gonna be a lot worse because you're gonna be up so high and you're gonna fall. Like I said, you don't want to live life like that. It's not a good way to live life, right? Did I miss the rock? I did miss the rock. It's all good. All right, so the next one is in Titus chapter 3, verse 2. Book of Titus 3, verse 2. I can't believe I missed that one. That's crazy. It's all good. Because in the book of Sirach, we was reading earlier in chapter 3, it talks about, it says, many are in a high place and of renown, but mysteries are revealed unto the meek, right? That's Sirach 3 and 19. It says, many are in a high place and of renown, but mysteries are revealed unto the meek. So the people who are in these high places, like I said, they don't get the mysteries of God. They're not about to get all this, right? And they feel some kind of way if they don't, right? But just think, I said, it's all about humbling yourself. Being meek is the best thing you can do, right, for God. The proud look is one of the things that God hates. It's one of the 6 things God hates, right? And 7 of them are abomination. A proud look of being proud is one of them. All right. So this is Titus chapter 3, verse 2. It says, to speak evil of no man, to be no brawlers, but gentle, showing all meekness unto all men. Like, right? So you shouldn't be talking bad about people, right? You shouldn't want to be brawlers, shouldn't be trying to fight nobody. You should be gentle, showing meekness to everybody, right? Showing kindness, stuff like that. But some people don't do that, right? They'll be like, oh, this person is this person is that. You can't do that, right? Because one, you don't know who you're talking to. You can be talking to an angel, you don't know it. So you should always be kind to everybody you speak to. But two, like I said, it's a sign for another person who might want to become a Christian. They look at you, that can be a stumbling block because he'll see you, oh, well, he treats these people a certain way, but he treats them a certain way. I guess that's what I should do because they're looking up to you. They don't know. They're still coming in the form. So you also got to remind you, it's like a child's watching you, right? They're looking at how you move. I tell you all the time, you can tell somebody what to do all the time, right? But then when you show them how you move, that's a big difference. I remember when I was, getting my life together and changing around, it really so much was I wasn't saying, because I was saying stuff to people, they don't believe it. But when they see you changing your food habits, they see you not doing this, they see you not doing that, they start questioning it because they see the movement, they see the actions. It's not really about what you say. You can tell a child a whole bunch of stuff, right? But if you're not showing the child that way, they're gonna do what they want to do. They're gonna do the monkey see, monkey do. No, I seen mom do this, so I seen dad do this, so I seen somebody else do this. You can tell them no, don't do it, but in their brain, which would be confusing, as I still believe to this day, if you say don't smoke, but then you smoke, that's confusing. Because it's like, why are you smoking? And if I can't smoke, you know what you say? You can't do this, you're not a grown up. So, the first thing they do, I can't wait to be a grown up. Because they want to do whatever that is. Mind you, it's probably a bad, disgusting habit. Cussing, smoking, all these things, but you don't separate it. If you wasn't smoking, they may not be intrigued to smoke. If you wasn't cussing, they may not be intrigued to curse, and so many things. But if I see somebody doing something, they tell me don't know how to do it, I gotta look at them like they're crazy. Because if you're telling me something that's bad, but you constantly do it, how can you tell me not to do it? Right? I had a friend who smoked cigarettes, and I asked him for a cigarette just because I was trying to do something with it. I wasn't really trying to smoke like he smoked, and he wasn't trying to give me a cigarette. I'm a grown man. Give me the cigarette. And he's trying to be my father. But my thing is, you can't be the example of doing something that you don't want them else to do. That makes no sense, right? That's kind of idiotic, but it is what it is. So now we're gonna be in Numbers chapter 12, and it's the whole chapter, verses 1 to 16. And this is the example I was talking about being meek, right? Because was probably one of the most meekest people on the earth, right? And it's going to talk about that and what happened with him being meek and the people around him, his brother and sister, not being meek, right? And how God punished them because they wanted to be on high, right? So this is Numbers chapter 12, verse 1 through 16. It says, and Miriam and Aaron spake against Moses because of the Ethiopian woman whom he had married. For he had married an Ethiopian woman, and they said, have the Lord indeed spoke only by Moses? Have he not spoken also by us? And the Lord heard it, right? So they're mad because Moses married somebody that wasn't an Israelite, right? But they don't know that God told Moses to marry this lady, right? He brought him in the desert and he was, he don't got no water. He famished. He helped him out. She introduced to us to her father, and they actually believe in God, right? That's the thing. They don't even know that. So Aaron and them don't even know that, right? But since she's not an Israelite, they like, well, that's crazy. And then they think, who is Moses? How are you better than us? Because God spoke to you, but He spoke to us too, right? But God going to show the difference about speaking to the people that's meek and the people that's not meek, right? So the next verse it says, verse number 3, it says, now the man Moses was very meek above all the men which were upon the face of the earth. So it's telling you Moses is probably the most humble guy at this time on earth, right? And the Lord spake suddenly unto Moses and unto Aaron and unto Miriam, come out ye three unto the tabernacle of the congregation. And they three came out. And the Lord came down in the pillar of the cloud and stood in the door of the tabernacle and called Aaron and Miriam, and they both came forth. And he said, hear now my words. If there be a prophet among you, I, the Lord, will make myself known unto him in a vision and will speak unto him in a dream. Right? So he's telling them, if there's a prophet among them, he'll still talk to them. It's not a problem, right? So they are right. God will talk to them, but he's going to show you the difference. He said, my servant Moses is not so, who is faithful in all my house. With him will I speak mouth to mouth, even apparently and not in dark speeches, and the similitude of the Lord shall he behold. Wherefore, then, when you're not afraid to speak against my servant Moses, and the anger of the Lord was kindled against them, and he departed. So he's telling them, like, look, I will reveal my stuff to prophets, which he has done. But he's like, yo, Moses is my guy, right? And it's because Moses is meek. Like I said, we were talking about it earlier, that he reveals the things unto the meek, right? Which was, well, I said it, I mentioned it. So Sirach chapter 3, verse 19, it says the mysteries are revealed unto the meek, right? The meek is one he's teaching his ways. So Moses is more meek than them, right? He's more humble. He's more gentle. They're mad about a situation that they can't control. He already got kids, they grown up and everything, right? They're still complaining about all this. For what? Moses came back to save you. You ain't thinking Moses for that. You ain't thinking nothing. You right. You just thinking about yourselves because now you want to be high and mighty. You trying to figure out why we're not being followed, right? Why everybody got to follow Moses? Why we listen to Moses? And God's telling you, like, yo, Moses is my guy, right? He putting himself to be in a more humble, meek position. So in verse 10, it says, and the cloud departed from off the tabernacle, and behold, Miriam became leprous, white as snow. And Aaron looked upon Miriam, and behold, she was leprous. And Aaron said unto Moses, at last, my Lord, I beseech thee, lay not thy sin upon us, wherein we have done foolishly, and wherein we have sinned. Let not her be as one dead, on whom the fleshes have consumed when the coming out of his mother's womb. So Aaron didn't recognize, like, we done messed up, right? Because clearly the Lord is mad. So you know you messing up, but you still choose to do it, right? That's the humility. You still on pride. You still not trying to be humble. You know you wrong. Is you wrong, especially going against your brother, right? He ain't done nothing to y'all or anything, but you mad because you feel some kind of way because you're not in charge or you're not on high, or you think that Moses thinks he's better than everybody, which he don't even think that. He didn't even want to do this, right? God just told him to go do it. He didn't even want to do this. He was by himself, lived with his family for 40 years. Moses was okay. He didn't want to do this. He came back because God told him to do, right? That's humility, doing something that you don't even want to do, right? Verse 13, it says, and Moses cried unto the Lord, saying, heal her now, O God, I beseech thee. And the Lord said to Moses, if her father had but spit in her face, should she not be ashamed 7 days? Let her be shut off from the camp 7 days, and after that let her be received in again. And Miriam was shut out from the camp 7 days, and the people journeyed not till Miriam was brought in again. And afterwards the people removed Hazaroth and pitched in the wilderness of Paran. So she had a penalty. Like I said, a penalty came. So she still had to be a leprous, which she got to be away from everybody because she got the skin disease, right, for 7 days. And mind you, God put this on her, so he could always just take it off in a heartbeat. But she had to be separated from everybody, right? And they were trying to plead her case, like, well, no, 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 forget, no, no, it don't work like that because there has to be some type of example made for somebody who wants to go against God, for somebody who thinks they're big and proud. Like I said, the pride is up high. God will bring them down, right? No question. And it's all brought down because she didn't want to be considered not somebody on high. She thought she was better than Moses. Her and Aaron thought they was better than Moses. He punished her, right? And Aaron got to witness it. And he tried to speak for her behalf, like, nah, you good. Don't worry about it. This is one of the reasons why they didn't get into the land. Not this particular reason, but they kept disobeying God, right? And we're not supposed to do that. All right, so this is beautifying meekness, the last few verses. The first one is in Galatians. So this is Galatians chapter 5, verse 20 through 22 through 26. Galatians chapter 5, verses 22 to 26. It says, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. Against such there is no law, right? And it says, and they that are Christ have crucified the flesh with the affections and lusts. If we live in the Spirit, let us also walk in the Spirit. Let us not be the serious of vainglory, provoking one another, envying one another, right? So it's telling you these are the things is the spirit of love, right? This is for the fruit. All these things, meekness, temperance, which we read earlier, right? And it said they crucified the flesh, right? Because they don't care about those things. These things are not making who you are. You can have all the money in the world. That don't mean you won't be a jerk, right? You can have no money in the world. You might be the most nicest person, the most loving person in the world. We judge too much stuff on the outside appearance. People wear their clothes, how they look, all these things, no matter if it's a man or a woman, physique, all this stuff matters, right? And that's something taught by the gods. When people see God, they see gods in this big statue, these big muscular men, the women, big voluptuous women, right? All these are what they want you to see. That's why they have covers of magazines and stuff like that. They're giving you the ideal image, the idol image, right? And we follow those things. And if you don't follow those things because you're walking in the spirit, like I said, walking in the spirit is the thing that you want to do, not walking in the flesh. Because we walk in the flesh, for instance, joy is not a fleshly thing, right? Peace is not a fleshly thing, right? Long suffering is not a fleshly thing. All these things ain't fleshly things. They're spiritual things, right? Because you can still have peace and be in a wheelchair, right? But somebody who doesn't see that as peace, right? They're looking at the fleshly eyes. Well, I'm in a wheelchair. I can't have peace in no way. That's the difference. I can't see, right? Some people are blind and they still be laughing, having a good time, right? Missing one eye, whatever, missing all their teeth, right? You don't see that. Do I want to miss my teeth? No. Do I lose my eye? No, right? But people don't see it that way because they so focused on the fleshly what I can and what I can't do. People that be like, man, I want to be taller. First of all, I'm not that tall. They say, are you tall? I'm not really that tall. People are taller than me, right? But you serve being tall. You being taller, how's that going to help you serve God? Right? And I tell all the time, it ain't always good to be tall like you think it is anyway, right? You might be so tall that you worried about hitting your head or something, or you can't fit in a certain car. So you 5'5", you can fit any car, every car big. No man, what you get? You get the smallest car and it's big, right? But they don't see it that way because they see it on the other side. Well, if I'm tall, I can get girls, right? All this stuff is a fleshly based thing. It's nothing spiritual, right? Just because you're tall, that don't mean anything. Like you see somebody that's tall, they might be like 6'7", 6'8". You don't play basketball? No. Just because he's tall, that don't mean he play basketball. He might not want to play basketball. He might be like a guitarist or something, right? But we so focused on the fleshly and what the world giving us is to remove our walk in the spirit, right? And you don't want that. You don't want that at all. So the last one I'm in Psalms. It's Psalms chapter 149, and it's verses 4 and 5. Psalms 149.
10:41.
No, 49.
49.
149.
I'm sorry. Gee. Okay. I got it. Thank you.
Psalms 149, chapter 4 and 5. I mean, verses 4 and 5. I'm sorry. It says, for the Lord taketh pleasure in his people. He will beautify the meek with salvation. Let the saints be joyful in glory, and let them sing upon their beds. Right? So it's saying he's going to beautify the meek, right, with salvation. That's the most beautiful thing you can get, right? Salvation is to being saved. Because when you're being saved through salvation and you go through that experience when Christ comes back, whether you were dead and you got rose or you was here, what happened, right? That's the new peace. That's the new world. That's the new joy. That's the finish line. That's the reward, right? That's the crown. That's the robe, or that's the reward. What you're doing right now, this is all training. This is all practice, right? For you to get to that point. But people don't see it like that. They say they got one life to live, which is true. You do have one life on earth, right? In this state that we in now. But there also is a second life, right? And this is when you get to second death and stuff like that. The second death is worse than the first death, right? The second life is different than the first life. But people don't see that. Because like I said, we're supposed to have an eternal life. But Satan has convinced them, hey, this is your only life, do what you want. YOLO, you only live one time, and that's how they be living. They want to do everything. Oh, I can say I did it. That's stupid, right? It's really dumb, right? But they do that all the time, and you don't want to live that kind of life because, like I said, you doing that, you're not realizing what you can be doing. You can be just literally running the hell, right? And I'm telling you, it's not a place you want to be because people got all these imagined things about it. I tell people all the time. I could post it in the room. And I'll try to put the link in once the YouTube video come up. It's called the Apocalypse of Paul. And I felt, even at the end of the book, it says if people need to know about this so they don't go to hell because it's not where you want to go, right? And the punishment isn't for us; it's for the angels who went from their first estate, the ones who left away. We'll talk about in Jude, right? And for their children, because they weren't supposed to have them, those are called abominations, right? Having children mixing our blood with their blood, right? That's for them, right? So this is their world really now, and they do what they want to do. That's why the earth's deteriorating. That's why it's doing things. The earth wasn't supposed to do that, right? But since they's here, this is their world. And if you want to follow them, God's like, cool, that's fine. But just know it comes with a penalty following them, right? You may see them as, gods or idols and all these things, but God see them as nobody, right? They're nothing. And when we follow them and we're not content, we're not humble, we're not meek, we're going to go into a bad path, and that's not what you want, right? So the book is called Apocalypse of Paul, and it talks about hell. When Paul has this vision, and God shows him a little bit of hell, what hell is like, right? And Paul's crying throughout and all these things. Excuse me, and it's showing what happens when you want to go against God. Like I said, God isn't sending people to hell. People are walking to hell willingly, right? And that's the difference of being humble and being able to be contrite with God and understand, like, you know what, God is everything. Let me follow Him. He's put me in the best situation in the best way, compared to you doing what you want to do, which is really under Satan, right? And then you will start experiencing all these penalties and things like that, right? So that was today's lesson about the meek and being meek and how you should be meek. Um, I think in about 29 days, yep, we'll have first fruits, which is on May 3rd. I'm gonna send the flyer out and everything and post on the website as well. But I'm gonna send the flyer out about that, so y'all have more than enough time to prepare yourselves for your take off from work and things like that. Some of y'all who travel and whatever, but we're gathering on May 3rd for first fruits. Um, and Bible study starts Monday, so it starts Monday at 7. As of right now, it's on WhatsApp, but that may change. And if it change, I will update on the website and update it within the WhatsApp room to let everybody know what has changed. I'm not so sure WhatsApp is the best platform for it. I think I found another one, but like I said, you'll know by the end of tomorrow what that's going to be on. Um, and I think that's all the announcements I have for today. So yeah, Bible studies on Monday and churches as usual. 10 o'clock, or really 10:15. I get a grace period for people who got to get themselves together, make sure they got their tea and their coffee, their cookies and whatever to start. Well, that was today's lesson. Anybody got any questions? Anybody in the chat? Anybody in the church room? All right. So if anybody has no questions, I'm gonna pray out. Um, and y'all go about y'all days, right? Dear Heavenly Father, all praises be to you, with the Yeshaya and Rock. I thank you for another blessed day. I thank you for allowing us to be here on another Sabbath. I thank you for allowing us for your grace, your mercy, your knowledge, and wisdom to teach us about being humble, being content, about following in your footsteps. Even your son is content, right? He's meek, he's gentle. So why shouldn't we be? If he's our example, he's our role model. He's the one we should follow. We should be just like him. And we just thank you for everything you've given us, and we just ask for a continuation to the coming of our Savior, Yeshua. Amen. So thank y'all for coming. Like I said, I hope y'all enjoy the rest of y'all day. I hope y'all can go throughout y'all day and get some more, knowledge from God, some more wisdom from God, more blessings from God. And I bless y'all. Have a good day. Shalom.